Before we jump into today's video, please support my channel by subscribing below. Thank you so much. Imagine walking into a state-owned bank today and taking 700 billion loan, the equivalent of Kenya's budget deficit for 2022-2023 financial year, and using land as security for the loan. When you default in repaying the loan, the bank opts to sell your land, possibly as the last debt recovery mechanism available under the law. However, the bank discovers that the land you used as collateral is actually owned by the government, and how you obtain title deed for the prime property is a misery that is not easy to unravel. Nearly 3 decades later, the bank has collapsed, but you are walking free and even managed to run for president with thousands of people voting for you. What sounds like a cock and bull story is actually one of the highlights in the life and times of former Lugari MP Cyrus Jirongo, who did exactly that in the 1990s. Mr. Jirongo almost single-handedly led to the collapse of Postbank Credit Limited, a state-owned bank that collapsed in the 1990s. When Kenya's budget was 45 billion in the 1993-1994 financial year, the country was short by 2.7 billion and borrowed to plug the deficit. At the same time, Mr. Jirongo had borrowed a similar amount from Postbank Credit, partially to honor an ambitious National Social Security Fund and NSSF real estate project in Nairobi, which fell through after Mr. Jirongo doubled his asking price to more than 2 billion and partly for his personal use. But the land he uses as collateral was technically public property that could not be auctioned to recover the debt. In 1993, Mr. Jirongo was one of the most untouchable people on the land. He chaired the Youth for KANU in 1992 campaign group that had successfully campaigned for President Daniel Arap Moi's re-election a year earlier. As has been the norm in post-independence Kenya, Mr. Jirongo was rewarded with special status that saw him do virtually anything he pleased. By then, Mr. Jirongo had incorporated several companies that were selling questionable deals with government institutions, some of which came back to bite the taxpayer hard. One of his companies, offshore trading company, borrowed 1.1 billion from Postbank Credit and used 1,000-acre piece of land in Nairobi's Ruai area as collateral. A year later, another company of his, Sololo Outlets, applied for 1.65 billion loan at the same bank. To secure the loan, Mr. Jirongo used another title deed for a 2.5-acre piece of land in Mukuru kwa Ruben, Nairobi County. Neither of the two loans has been prepaid, and their interest has left Mr. Jirongo with 40 billion in debt. The first loan of 1.1 billion has ballooned to over 20 billion according to court records filed by the Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation. At the time Mr. Jirongo borrowed the money, Kenya had not enacted the induplam rule that prohibits the growth of interest rate beyond the amount borrowed, and the interest rates in the 1990s were not friendly. Postbank Credit was among 17 banks that collapsed in the 1990s after politically connected individuals borrowed billions and failed to repay.